Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crossroads Stories. I hope you're having a fantastic day, or at least a better day than the ex-fiancé in today's story is about to have. Today, we're heading overseas to the land of smiles, Thailand. Now, we've all heard the stories about guys retiring in paradise, meeting a beautiful local girl, and living happily ever after on a beach. But we've also heard the other stories, the ones where the bank account runs dry, and suddenly, true love packs a suitcase. Well, today's story comes from Kenneth. He's a retired contractor from Ohio who thought he'd hung up his tool belt for good when he moved to Southeast Asia. But as it turns out, when you build a life with the wrong person, sometimes the only option is to dismantle it, literally. Let me tell you, the level of petty revenge here is architectural in its beauty. If you enjoy stories about FAA finding out after messing with a blue-collar worker, you're going to love this. Before we jump in, do me a favor, smash that like button like Kenneth smashes. Well, you'll see. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button so you don't miss the next dose of karma. Here is Kenneth's story in his own words. People have this idea about retiring to Thailand. They imagine sitting on a white beach with a coconut in one hand and a fan in the other, watching the sunset while checking their stock portfolio. They think it's a permanent vacation. But I didn't come here to rot in a beach chair. I came here because my knees couldn't take another winter in Ohio, and my pension goes a hell of a lot further in a place where a bowl of noodles costs $1. I'm Kenneth. I spent 35 years as a commercial contractor. I built everything from dental offices to strip malls. If you've driven past a shopping center in the Midwest, there's a decent chance I poured the foundation or supervised the framing. I'm not a flashy guy. I drive a truck until the wheels fall off, I wear boots until the soles have holes, and I know exactly what things cost. That was my first mistake when I met Yaya. I forgot that in this part of the world, knowing the cost doesn't mean you know the price. I met Yaya 2 years ago in Udon Thani. It's up in the northeast, the Isan region. It's not the touristy part of Thailand. There are no beaches, just endless rice paddies, red dirt, and heat that feels like standing inside a convection oven. She was 27, working the front desk at the hotel where I stayed while scouting for a rental. She wasn't the loudest girl in the room, and she didn't wear a pound of makeup. She seemed simple, family-oriented. She laughed at my bad jokes, and actually seemed interested when I talked about the difference between PX piping and copper. We started dating. For the first year, it was great. She took me to her village to meet her parents. They were rice farmers, humble people who smiled a lot and didn't speak a word of English. We sat on mats on the floor, ate sticky rice with our hands, and I felt like I had finally found some peace. Then came the idea. Kenneth, Yaya said one night, scrolling through her phone. My family land is big. Beautiful view of the rice field. If we build a resort, a homestay, we can make money. You're a builder. You can make it perfect. The contractor in me woke up. I looked at the land. It was just a muddy field with water buffalo grazing on it, but I saw the potential. I sketched it out on a napkin. A raised teak wood main house, a modern industrial kitchen for a cafe, and 3 guest villas. I'll pay for the materials, I told her, but I'm building it. My way. No cutting corners. I poured $60,000 into that project. In Ohio, $60,000 gets you a nice kitchen renovation. In rural Thailand, it gets you a palace. I didn't just write checks. I was out there every single day in the 100-degree heat. I taught her cousins how to mix concrete properly so it wouldn't crack in 6 months. I imported electrical breakers from Germany because the local stuff was a fire hazard. I bought authentic, old-growth Golden Teak wood for the pillars, stuff that costs a fortune and is nearly impossible to find legally unless you know the right brokers. I installed a commercial water filtration system that looked like it belonged on a submarine. For 6 months, I was in heaven. I was building our future. But as the walls went up, Yaya's attitude started to change. In the beginning, she was mixing cement with me, her hair tied back in a bandana. But once the structure was finished and the expensive fixtures started arriving, the bandana disappeared. She started dressing up to come to the job site. She'd show up in heels, walking gingerly over the sawdust, holding her phone out to live stream the progress. "Honey, hand me the level," I asked one afternoon, balancing on a ladder. She didn't look up from her screen. Ask my brother to do it. I am busy talking to customers. Customers? We aren't even open yet. I am building the brand, Kenneth. You build a house. I build the image. I'll let it slide. I figured she was just excited. But then the money request started getting weird. I give her 10,000 baht for paint, and she'd come back with the cheap stuff, claiming the price had gone up. I'd ask for receipts, and she'd pout, telling me I didn't trust her. It's the Thai way, she'd say. You don't understand. Math is the same in every language, Yaya, I told her once. She didn't like that. By the time we were installing the kitchen, I was exhausted. I had bought an industrial Italian espresso machine for the cafe, a shiny chrome beast that cost more than her father's truck. I was under the counter, wrenching the plumbing tight, covered in grease and sweat. Yaya walked in. She was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before and holding a new iPhone I definitely hadn't bought her. She was on a video call. I stayed quiet under the counter, tightening a nut. I wasn't hiding, I was just working. She was speaking English to the phone, which was rare. She usually spoke the local dialect to her friends. Yes, it is almost done, she said, her voice high and giggly. She panned the camera around the room, showing off the granite countertops I had just sealed. The kitchen is chef grade. Top quality. He spared no expense. A voice on the other end, a man's voice, mumbled something I couldn't catch. Yaya laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. Don't worry about him. He is exhausted. He looks like a dirty laborer. The old man thinks he is the manager, but he is just the wallet. Once the opening ceremony is done, he will go back to his rental. He is, how do you say, expired. I froze. My hand gripped the wrench so hard my knuckles turned white. Expired. Is forgettable, she continued, leaning against the counter right above my head. Losers like him aren't memorable. He just wanted something to do. Now I have a business. A real business for a real future. Not with a retired construction worker. She walked out of the kitchen, her heels clicking on the tiles I had laid with my own hands. I stayed under that counter for a long time. I looked at the plumbing. I looked at the expensive filtration system. I looked at the Italian espresso machine. I didn't yell. I didn't chase after her. In my line of work, when you find a crack in the foundation, you don't just paint over it. You inspect the damage, you assess the structural integrity, and, if it's bad enough, you schedule a demolition. I crawled out from under the counter, wiped the grease off my hand with a rag, and walked out to my truck. The grand opening and house blessing was scheduled for the next morning. Expired. I muttered to myself, starting the engine. We'll see about that. The morning of the house blessing, the humidity was already pushing 90%. In the village, a house blessing is a massive deal. It's part religious ceremony, part block party. There were 9 monks sitting on a raised platform I had built, chanting rhythmically while holding a long spool of white thread that connected them to a bowl of holy water. I had showered, shaved, and put on my best button-down shirt. I felt good. I looked around at the structure. The golden teak pillars glowing in the morning sun, the polished concrete floors, the cafe ready to serve its first customers. I stood near the back, waiting for the moment when Yaya would call me over to light the incense or offer food to the monks. That's usually how it works. The owner, or the head of the household, gets the honor. But Yaya didn't look at me. She was fluttering around in a traditional silk dress that probably cost more than my first car, serving water to the monks and posing for photos with the village headman. Her parents were there, sitting on the floor, smiling nervously. They waved at me, but it was a small, timid wave. They knew who paid for the roof over their heads, but in this village, hierarchy is everything, and I was just the wallet in the corner. Then, the chanting stopped. The monks began to eat. That's when the noise cut through the quiet buzzing of the cicadas. A heavy bass line thumped from the road. Dust clouds billowed up as a vehicle approached. It wasn't a farm truck. It was a BMW X7, pearl white, shining like a diamond in a pig pen. It navigated the rutted dirt road with zero caution, bouncing over potholes I've been begging the local government to fix for months. The SUV pulled right up to the front gate, blocking the entrance. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a man who looked like he had gotten lost on his way to a high-end nightclub in Bangkok. He was Thai, maybe 30 years old. He wore a suit that was too tight, loafers with no socks, and enough gold chains to anchor a battleship. He took off his sunglasses, inspected the mud on his shoes with a frown, and then looked up at the house with a proprietary smirk. Bang! Yaya squealed. She actually squealed. She ran past me, past her parents, and practically threw herself at this guy. He didn't hug her. He just patted her arm and handed her a car key to hold, like she was his valet. I walked over. The contractor in me was annoyed that someone was blocking the driveway. The boyfriend in me was starting to feel that cold knot in my stomach tighten. Yaya, I said, my voice low. Who is this? We have guests. The monks are eating. Yaya turned to me. The smile vanished instantly. She looked at Bank, then back at me. She took a breath and switched to English, loud, clear English, so the silence in the yard felt heavy. Kenneth, this is Bank. He is, how do you say, the CEO, the visionary. Bank looked me up and down. He wrinkled his nose. This is the builder? He asked Yaya in English, his accent thick but understandable. He looks old. You said he was a professional. He is old. Yaya agreed, stepping closer to Bank. But he was useful. I looked between them. Useful? Yaya, I poured the foundation. I paid for the timber. I built this place for us. Bank laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a dry, dismissive sound. For us? No. You built this for Yaya. And now, Yaya is with someone who matches her level. You are. He waved a hand at my work boots. You are labor. Service industry. I am finance. I'm the guy who spent $60,000 on this property, I said, my voice rising. The village headman was watching. The neighbors were watching. Nobody moved. They didn't understand the words, but they understood the tone. This is my project. Yaya stepped forward. Her face was hard, completely devoid of the sweetness I had seen for 2 years. It is my land, Kenneth. My father's land. Thai law says you own nothing. You own air. You just paid rent in advance. She gestured to the house. Bank is going to take it from here. He has real connections. He is going to turn this into a franchise. He has ambition. You just want to fix pipes and drink cheap beer. You embarrass me. I embarrass you? I pointed at the BMW. This guy can't even park without blocking the gate. Does he know how to run a generator? Does he know how to service the water pump I installed? I don't need to know, Bank sneered. I hire people like you to know. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wallet that looked like it was made of alligator skin. He pulled out a crisp, purple 500 baht note, about $15. Here, Bank said, flicking the bill at me. It hit my chest and fluttered to the red dirt. For a taxi. Go back to the city. We have a family celebration now. I looked at the money in the dirt. I looked at Yaya's parents. Her father looked down at his hands. Her mother turned away. They weren't going to help. The Golden Teak house was too beautiful. The promise of this rich Bangkok man was too bright. They were trading a reliable tractor for a shiny sports car that had no engine, but they didn't know that yet. Yaya, I said, giving her one last chance. You're making a mistake. He's all flash. Look at his shoes. He's never worked a day in his life. Get out, Yaya screamed, causing the monks to look up from their meal. I will forget you in a week. Losers like you are not memorable. Go. She grabbed my motorcycle helmet from the bench and threw it at me. I caught it by the strap. I looked at the house one last time. I looked at the imported lights, the perfectly leveled deck, the roof line that I had designed to catch the breeze just right. All right, I said, keeping my voice dangerously calm. I'll go. But remember, Yaya, a house is only as good as its foundation. And you just cracked yours. I didn't pick up the money. I walked to my beat-up pickup truck parked outside the gate. As I started the engine, I saw Bank put his arm around Yaya and point at the cafe, probably telling her where he wanted to put a VIP lounge. I put the truck in gear and drove away, leaving a cloud of red dust to settle on his shiny white BMW. I was angry, sure, but as I drove back toward the city, my anger started to cool into something else. Something cold and hard. They thought I was just a laborer. They forgot that before you build, you have to read the contract. And I always read the fine print. I returned to my apartment in the city, a small one-bedroom unit above a noodle shop. It was a far cry from the Golden Teak villa I had just been kicked out of. The air conditioner rattled like a lawnmower, and the view was of a brick wall, not a rice paddy. But it was mine, and unlike the resort, I paid the rent myself, so nobody could tell me to leave. I didn't spend the next 2 days crying into a beer. I spent them organizing. I'm a contractor, I don't deal in emotions, I deal in blueprints and paper trails. I had a filing cabinet in the corner that Yaya always made fun of. She called it my boring box. Well, the boring box was about to become very interesting. On the third morning, a loud banging on my door interrupted my coffee. It wasn't a polite knock. It was the kind of knock that says, "Open up or we're coming in." I opened the door. Two men stood there. One was a local police officer in the tight, brown uniform they wear here. The other was an immigration officer. Neither of them looked happy. "Mr. Kenneth?" the immigration officer asked. He held a clipboard. "That's me," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" "Passport," the policeman said. He didn't say please. I walked over to the table and handed it to him. He flipped through the pages, scrutinizing my retirement visa like he was looking for a secret code. "We have report," the immigration officer said, his English slow and practiced. "Reports say you working illegal. Construction. No work permit." I kept my face perfectly still. In Thailand, working without a permit is a massive offense. It can get you deported and blacklisted. "I'm retired," I said calmly. "I don't work. I have a pension." The officer pulled out his phone and swiped to a photo. He shoved the screen in my face. It was a picture of me, taken 3 months ago. I was on the roof of the villa, wearing a tool belt, holding a nail gun, sweating in the sun. My stomach dropped. Yaya had taken that photo. At the time, she said, "Oh, look at my strong man. So handsome when he works." Now, it was evidence. She hadn't been taking a keepsake. She had been building a dossier. "This you?" the officer asked. "That's me fixing a roof for my girlfriend," I said. "Helping family. Not a job. No money paid." "Helping is working," the officer said, narrowing his eyes. "You use tool. You build house. That is job for Thai person. Foreigner cannot do. And reports say you threaten people," the policeman added. "You go to house, you scream, you throw helmet. You dangerous man." I almost laughed. "I threw a helmet?" She threw it at me. "Reports say you scary," the policeman shrugged. "We watch you. You pack bag maybe. If we find you work again, you go home. America. Bye-bye." They handed my passport back. It was a warning shot. Yaya wasn't just dumping me. She was trying to nuke me from orbit. She wanted me deported, so there would be absolutely no one left to contest her ownership of the resort. If I was in Ohio, she kept everything scot-free. It was actually a smart plan. Evil but smart. "Stay away from village," the officer said, pointing a finger at my chest. "Stay away from Miss Yaya. She afraid of you." "I bet she is," I muttered. They left, their heavy boots clomping down the hallway. I locked the door and slid the deadbolt. My hands were shaking a little. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. She wanted to play legal hardball? She wanted to use the system against me? I walked over to the boring box and unlocked it. I pulled out a thick blue folder. Yaya thought she was clever. She knew foreigners couldn't own land in Thailand. It's the first thing you learn here. You could buy the house, but the dirt underneath it belongs to a Thai citizen. Most guys just put the land in the girlfriend's name and pray she doesn't leave. When she does, they lose everything. But I had worked in commercial construction for 35 years. I dealt with liability, insurance, and contracts every single day. I didn't trust anyone with $60,000 on a handshake. I opened the folder. Inside were 2 documents that Yaya had signed 2 years ago. The first was a usufruct agreement. It's a legal instrument based on Roman law. Basically, it gave me the right to use, manage, and profit from the property for my lifetime. She had signed it at the land office because I told her it was just standard paperwork for the visa. She was too busy looking at Instagram to read the fine print. The second document was even better. It was a lease of movable property. Because I couldn't own the land, I had bought every single physical item in my own name. The Golden Teak pillars? My name on the receipt. The industrial generator? My name. The pumps, the air cons, the imported Italian espresso machine, all registered to me. And the contract said that these items were leased to the resort business. If the lease was voided, say, by banning the owner from the premises, the owner had the right to immediate repossession. Yaya thought she owned a resort. She didn't. She owned a patch of dirt and some concrete. I owned the resort that was sitting on top of the dirt. She wanted to report me for working? Fine. I wasn't a worker anymore. I was a creditor. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the local lawyer in the village. He was probably Yaya's cousin or drinking buddies with the police chief. I dialed a number in Bangkok, a firm called Siam Legal and Associates. They charged $300 an hour, and they were worth every penny. "This is Kenneth," I said when the receptionist answered. "Connect me to the senior partner. I have a breach of contract case in Udon Thani, and I need a court order for asset seizure." I looked at the photo of the resort on my wall. It really was beautiful. "And tell him to rent some flatbed trucks," I added. "Big ones." I took a sip of my cold coffee. It tasted terrible, but for the first time in days, I smiled. Yaya wanted to be a business owner with her new CEO boyfriend. Well, business is brutal, and she was about to learn the most important rule of construction. If you don't pay the contractor takes his tools home. All of them. 2 weeks passed. I stayed in my apartment, reviewing documents with Prazit, the shark of a lawyer I'd hired from Bangkok. Prazit wasn't cheap. He wore a suit that cost more than my truck, and he didn't smile. I liked him immediately. Meanwhile, out in the rice paddies, I heard things were falling apart. Small towns in Thailand are like echo chambers. Everyone knows what you had for breakfast before you've even finished eating it. My old neighbor, a sweet lady who sold grilled chicken, told me the news. "The water stop," she told me, miming a faucet running dry. "The big pump go put, then die." I smiled. Of course it did. That commercial pump required a specific priming sequence if the pressure dropped. I was the only one who knew how to do it. Apparently, the CEO bank didn't know how to prime a pump. I imagined the scene. Guests in the fancy villas trying to take showers, only to get a trickle of brown mud. Yaya running to Bank, asking him to fix it. Bank, who probably thought a wrench was a type of bird, looking at the machinery in confusion. My chicken seller friend told me more. The rich boy, he not pay electric. The authority come to cut wire. Yaya cry. He say his money is, how you say locked? Tied up in investments, I translated. Yes, locked in investment. He drive BMW, but cannot pay 2,000 baht for electric. It was perfect. Yaya had traded a guy who could fix anything and paid for everything, for a guy who could fix nothing and paid for nothing. She wanted a CEO? She got one. A chief empty officer. On a Wednesday morning, exactly 20 days after I was kicked out, I decided it was time to visit. I didn't go alone. I wasn't going to give them a chance to call the police on me for threatening behavior again. I arrived in a convoy. My truck was in the lead. Behind me was Prazit's black sedan. And behind him were 2 large flatbed trucks with cranes and a white van marked Legal Execution Department. We pulled up to the gate of the resort. The BMW was there, parked crookedly. There were a few guests, backpackers mostly, eating breakfast in the cafe I had built. I honked my horn, long and loud. Yaya came running out of the main house. She looked stressed. Her hair wasn't done, and she was wearing a t-shirt, not the silk dress. When she saw my truck, her face twisted in anger. Bank followed her out, shirtless, holding a cigarette. He looked like he'd just woken up. They stormed up to the gate. I stepped out, followed immediately by Prazit and 2 officers in khaki uniforms. "You," Yaya screamed in English. "I tell you stay away. I call police again. You want deportation." Bank flicked his cigarette on the ground. "Hey, old man, you cannot be here. This private property. My property." I leaned against my truck and crossed my arms. "Actually, Bank, we need to clarify that." Prazit stepped forward. He adjusted his glasses and opened a leather folder. He didn't speak to them in English. He spoke in rapid, formal, high-level Thai. I didn't understand the words, but I knew the tone. It was the tone of a man telling you that you were in very deep trouble. Yaya's face went pale. Bank looked confused. He tried to interrupt, shouting something about knowing the governor. Prazit cut him off with one hand raised. He handed a document to the execution officer, who walked over and taped a piece of paper to the beautiful teak gate I had sanded myself. "What is this?" Bank demanded in English, looking at me. "What you do?" "Read it," I said. Yaya ripped the paper off the gate. Her hands were shaking. She read it, her eyes getting wider and wider. She looked at the flatbed trucks behind me. She looked at the crane. "No," she whispered. "You cannot." "What?" Bank asked. What'd it say? Yaya looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. He sue. He sue for breach of contract. So, Bank laughed. Let him sue. We have land. He cannot take land. Farong cannot own land. We win. I stepped forward. You're right, Bank. I can't own the land. The dirt is 100% yours. Enjoy it. I pointed to the main house. The beautiful, two-story, open-air pavilion made of golden teak wood. But the contract Yaya signed, I continued, says that the structure, the house, the villas, the kitchen, is a movable asset leased to the business. And since you breached the lease by kicking me out and failing to pay the usage fee, I paused for dramatic effect. I'm repossessing my property. Bank looked at the house, then back at me. Repossess? It is a house. You cannot put house in pocket. In Thailand, I said, grinning, a traditional teak house is considered furniture. It's built with bolts and joinery, not nails. It's designed to be moved. I signaled to the crew in the flatbed trucks. The drivers started their engines. The rumble of the heavy diesel motors drowned out the birds. I'm not taking the land, Yaya, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. I'm taking the house, and the generator, and the pumps, and the espresso machine. You are crazy, Yaya screamed, running toward the gate. You destroy everything. I built it, I said cold. I can unbuild it. The legal execution officer stepped in front of Yaya, blocking her path. He spoke sternly. He was telling her that this was a court order. If she interfered, she would be arrested for obstruction of justice. Bank stood there, his mouth open. He looked at the massive crane unfolding its arm. He looked at his shiny BMW, then at the house he had been bragging about to all his friends. Wait, Bank said, his voice suddenly small. We could talk. Maybe we pay you rent. Rent. I laughed. You can't even pay the electric bill, Bank. Your credit is worse than your parking. I turned to the foreman of the demolition crew. He was a guy I'd worked with before. He was holding a heavy impact drill. Consamchai, I said. Start with the roof. Yaya screamed. It was a long, high-pitched sound of pure despair. But it was too late. The crew was already marching past her, boots on the ground, tools in hand. The dismantling of the Golden Teak dream had begun. If you have never heard the sound of 10 industrial impact drivers starting at the exact same time, let me tell you, it sounds like music, specifically the Symphony of Justice. The demolition crew I had hired wasn't a bunch of guys with sledgehammers. They were specialists in reclaiming antique wood. In Thailand, golden teak is like gold bars. You don't smash it, you carefully unbolt it. All right, boys, I shouted over the noise. Start with the shiny stuff. 2 workers marched into the open-air cafe. A moment later, they walked out carrying the Italian espresso machine, the chrome beast that cost $3,000. Yaya watched in horror as it was loaded into the back of a van, cushioned by moving blankets. My coffee, Bank yelled. He was pacing back and forth, sweat soaking through his linen pants. This is robbery. Police. Why you stand there? The police officer, who was leaning against a tree, smoking a cigarette, just shrugged. He pointed at the court order taped to the gate. Paperwork is good, he said in broken English. Farong has paper. You have nothing. Next came the air conditioning units. The crew climbed ladders, disconnected the compressors, and lowered them down. The guests, a young couple from Germany who had been eating fruit salad, looked around in confusion. Excuse me, the German guy asked me, holding a piece of pineapple. Is the hotel closing? The hotel is moving, I told him, handing him a $20 bill. Go to the place down the road. Tell them Kenneth sent you. Sorry about the noise. They grabbed their backpacks and ran. Smart kids. Yaya was hysterical. She wasn't crying the cute, silent tears she used to get her way. She was screaming a raw, ugly sound. She tried to run toward the house, grabbing at the arm of a worker who was carrying a ceiling fan. Stop! Stop it! She shrieked. This is my home. My face. You destroy my face. In Thailand, face is everything. Reputation, status, how your neighbors see you. That is the real currency. And right now, Yaya was bankrupt. The entire village had gathered at the fence. The old women were pointing and whispering. The men were shaking their heads. They were watching the rich local girl get exposed as a fraud. Then came the main event. The crane engine roared to life. The crew had already detached the roof tiles, stacking them neatly on pallets. Now, they were unbolting the main structure. Traditional Thai teak houses are brilliant engineering. They fit together like a puzzle. If you know how to build them, you know how to take them apart. I watched as the first massive teak pillar, a solid log 18 inches thick, was lifted into the air. It swung slowly, suspended against the blue sky, before being lowered onto the flatbed truck. That pillar alone was worth 2 months of bank's car payments. Speaking of bank, the CEO was unraveling fast. He realized that with every bolt that was removed, his investment was disappearing. He wasn't looking at a resort anymore. He was looking at a concrete slab in the middle of a rice field. He turned on Yaya. "You told me you own this." Bank shouted, his voice cracking. "You said the old man just gave it to you." "I do own it," Yaya screamed back, her makeup running down her face in dark streaks. "It is my land. I cannot sell land." Bank yelled, throwing his hands in the air. "I needed the resort, the business, the cash flow. I told my investors we open next week. Now what? I show them a hole in the ground." "Investors?" I laughed, stepping closer to them. The noise of the drills was deafening, but they heard me. "Bank, let's be honest. You don't have investors. You have loan sharks, and they're going to be very unhappy when they see this." Bank's face went white. I had guessed right. Guys like him always borrow money to look rich. He looked at the dismantling house, then at Yaya, who looked like a mess. The fantasy was over. The high-maintenance girlfriend wasn't an asset anymore. She was a liability. "This is your fault," Bank spat at her. He sounded disgusted. "You are stupid. You let a Farong trick you." "Trick her?" I interrupted. "I didn't trick anyone. I read the contract. You two were just too busy taking selfies to read the fine print." Bank didn't answer. He turned around and walked toward his BMW. "Bank!" Yaya cried out, chasing him. "Where are you going? Do not leave me. Help me stop them." Bank opened his car door. "I'm going to Bangkok. Do not call me. You are embarrassing." He slammed the door. The engine roared, and he reversed aggressively, almost hitting the police car. He peeled out onto the dirt road, leaving a cloud of dust that covered Yaya from head to toe. She stood there alone. The better man had lasted exactly 45 minutes of hardship. The crew was efficient. By 4 p.m., the sun was starting to dip low, casting long shadows across the paddy. The Golden Teak house was gone. The cafe was gone. The pumps, the generator, the lights, the furniture, all gone. All that was left was the concrete foundation I had poured. It looked like a tombstone. Yaya was sitting on the edge of the concrete slab, her head in her hands. Her parents were nowhere to be seen. They had hidden inside their old wooden shack, too ashamed to come out. I walked over to the foreman. "Kun, is that everything?" "Everything on the list, boss," Kun said, wiping sweat from his face. "Even the toilet bowls. High-quality ceramic. We took them." "Good man." I walked over to Yaya. The shadow of the crane fell over her. She looked up. Her eyes were red and puffy. She looked small. The arrogance, the "I will forget you in a week" attitude, it was all gone. "Why?" she whispered. "Why you do this?" "You love me." "I did," I said, looking at the empty space where our bedroom used to be. "I loved you enough to build you a palace. I worked in the sun until my skin burned. I spent my life savings on your dream." I pointed to the spot where she had humiliated me in front of the monks. "But you didn't want a partner, Yaya. You wanted a sponsor. You stood right there and told me I was a loser. You told me I was forgettable." I leaned down so our eyes were level. "Is this memorable enough for you?" She flinched. "You wanted a rich man," I continued softly. "You got one. Bank drove a nice car. But you forgot something important, Yaya. The rich man didn't build this house. The loser did. The man with the grease under his fingernails built it. And since you decided I wasn't good enough to stay," I stood up and signaled the trucks to move out. I decided to take my work home with me. I turned and walked to my truck. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was behind me. Nothing. Just a patch of dirt, a slab of concrete, and a girl who had traded a diamond for a piece of glass, realizing too late that she had cut herself on the edges. The convoy rolled out. The sun set over the rice fields, and for the first time in months, the air felt cool. I didn't stick around Udon Thani. There's a saying in the construction business. Once the job is done, you clear the site. And that site was radioactive. I moved south, way south. I found a nice little condo in Hua Hin, overlooking the Gulf of Thailand. It's quiet here. The air smells like salt instead of burning rice straw, and the only thing I build these days is a sandcastle with my neighbor's kid when I'm bored. You're probably wondering about the numbers. I'm a contractor, so I track every penny. I didn't get all my money back. Construction materials depreciate the second you install them. But Golden Teak is special. It's like aging wine. I sold the reclaimed teak wood, the pillars, and the flooring to a boutique hotel developer in Phuket. He was a wealthy Thai guy who actually appreciated craftsmanship. When he saw the quality of the joinery, he didn't haggle. "You took good care of this wood," he told me, running his hand over a pillar. "Better care than I took of my heart," I joked. He laughed. I sold the Italian espresso machine to a cafe in Bangkok for 70 cents on the dollar. The generator went to a farm. In total, I recovered about $42,000 out of my $60,000 investment. I lost 18 grand, sure. But I look at it this way. $18,000 was a cheap price to pay for my freedom. Some guys lose half their pension and their dignity. I just lost the cost of labor. For 3 months, I heard nothing. I blocked Yaya on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I didn't want to see her influencer life or lack thereof. But the village grapevine is faster than fiber optic internet. My old friend, the chicken seller, sent me a message online. She included a photo. It was a picture of the resort land. It was just a flat, gray slab of concrete surrounded by weeds. A stray dog was sleeping in the middle of where the VIP lounge used to be. Sad news, the message read, "Yaya family have big problem. They borrow money from bad men. Expect money from hotel. No hotel. No money. Bad men, come take tractor. Take truck." I sighed. I didn't feel happy about that. I'm not a monster. I liked her parents. But they had gambled everything on Yaya's ability to trap a rich husband, and they bet on the wrong horse. Then, last Saturday, my phone rang. It was a new number. Usually I don't answer those, but I was 3 beers deep on my balcony and feeling curious. "Hello, Kenneth." The voice was small, broken. It sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "Hello, Yaya," I said, taking a sip of my singha. "Kenneth, I miss you." "I bet you do," I said. "How's bank? How's the CEO lifestyle?" There was a silence, then the sound of sniffling. "Bank is evil man. He block me. He tell everyone I am fraud. He say I trick him. Irony is a painfully sharp tool, isn't it?" "Kenneth, please," she cried. "The village, they laugh at me. I cannot walk to market. They call me Princess Concrete. My mother cry every day. We have no money for electric." "That sounds difficult, Yaya. Can you come back?" Her voice pitched up, trying to find that old sweetness, that manipulative tone that used to work so well. "We can start again. You have money from wood? We can build smaller house. Just for us. I love you. I realize now. You were the strong man. Bank was just boy." I looked out at the ocean. The sun was setting, turning the water purple and gold. I thought about the sweat dripping off my nose while I tiled her bathroom. I thought about the way she looked at me when she threw that helmet. "Expired." "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice gentle. "You don't miss me. You miss the ATM." No, I love." "Stop," I cut her off. "Listen to me. You want a memorable consequence? You got it. I told you, I'm a builder. I know about foundations. And our relationship, it was built on sand. You can't build a house on sand, Yaya. It collapses every time." "But I have nothing," she wailed. "You have the land," I said. "And you have a very nice concrete slab. Maybe you could dry rice on it. Goodbye, Yaya." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. I sat there for a long time, watching the waves roll in. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I just felt light. I picked up my phone one last time, opened my banking app, and looked at the deposit from the Teakwood sale. It was enough to rent this ocean view condo for the next 5 years. I raised my beer to the empty air. "Here's to the foundation," I whispered, and knowing when to tear it down. If you enjoyed seeing the CEO drive away in his BMW while his resort vanished in a thin air, hit that like button. It really helps the channel, and it costs you absolutely nothing, unlike Yaya's mistake. And if you want more stories about revenge, karma, and people getting exactly what they deserve, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep your foundation strong and always read the fine print. See ya.